Hey guys, this is Jesus Loving Buddy. I decided to make a second part to this video, why evolution and Christianity don't mix, because I've recently come across some new interesting information, and I thought I'd share it with you. Before I get back to the topics I was discussing before, I would also like to say that all the genealogies described in the Bible really do give evidence that Adam and Eve were real people that existed in space-time history, thus giving evidence that the Garden of Eden did actually exist, and that Genesis is not a metaphorical book or something to be taken metaphorically, I suppose. Okay, now I'm going to get back into the idea of how being a Christian and believing in evolution contradicts the doctrine of sin, and even what is called eschatology, which is the study of theology in relation to things to come in future events, in regards to what is called the New Jerusalem. So here we go. Yes, evolution contradicts the Christian doctrine of sin, and sin introduced death into the world, and so when Adam and Eve sinned, only at that time did anything have the capability to die, anything at all. Along with the death of animals and humans, there were also no geological defects in the Garden of Eden, such as tornadoes, hurricanes, diseases, etc. This conflicts with evolution because it states that we came from a primordial soup, as in as trillions of organisms died, mutated, eventually man came along. Thus, if there is no death in the world, and Adam and Eve could not have been created through this type of evolutionary process of organisms dying and more advanced organisms arising from that, aka natural selection. On a side note, it is important to mention that all these animals are all animals and human beings who lived in this perfect environment of the Garden of Eden were vegetarians. And this is supported by Genesis 1:29 through 30, Genesis 2:9 and 2:16. And if you're doubting any of the Bible verses I'm throwing out at you in here for evidence of my claims, just check out my sources, which in this case would be the Apologetic Study Bible. Thus, it wasn't until after the fall of mankind did any human or animal eat meat. So obviously, there was no death by means of animals eating each other. With that in mind, we can also demonstrate that evolution contradicts not only the doctrine of sin, but what is called eschatology, which is a branch of theology concerned with the final events in the history of the world or of mankind. This is seen as we examine how the Garden of Eden and the New Jerusalem, which God will establish after Armageddon, are supposed to be exactly the same in their perfection, lack of death, issues in nature, such as natural disasters and sinless states. Okay, so the Garden of Eden and the New Jerusalem are supposed to be exactly the same. The New Jerusalem is yet to come, and here we go. This indicates the New Jerusalem experience will involve returning back to vegetarianism, just like the Garden of Eden, as seen in Isaiah 11:6 through 8, Isaiah 51:3, Ezekiel 36:35, and Romans 21:4, which is giving a description of the New Jerusalem. And I'll have those Bible verses ready for you and the more information thingy on the side. Thus, since we have concluded the New Jerusalem will include no death, no sin, and vegetarianism, all the while saying the Garden of Eden had the exact same qualities, then having a Christian evolutionary viewpoint not only contradicts the doctrine of sin, but eschatology, what will come, the things to come. In conclusion, since the Bible clearly indicates the similarities between the Garden of Eden and the New Jerusalem, the evolutionary theory does not fit at all within Christianity. Any other position on this topic is flat out in contradiction and is based on speculation, and it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Because if the Garden of Eden is described as this way, and then some scientists will say that, oh, okay, that's just metaphorical, then we don't really have to worry about that. But then they say that the New Jerusalem is supposed to be exactly like the Garden of Eden was, then you have a major problem. If someone argues that the Bible has to submit to science, they are then claiming that science has more authority than God, meaning the sayings that Jesus Christ has mentioned before. It is demonstrated in Romans 22:18 through 19 that trying to alter the book of Revelations is sin, and those who do so will receive punishment. Even though this was written in the context of the book of Revelations, I argue that it also applies to all of God's Word, meaning from Genesis to Revelations. If someone claims otherwise, I would argue they are simply picking and choosing what they want to believe out of God's Word and claiming they can do so in the name of science. I claim that God's Word overrides what appears to be scientific fact at this time, and I also believe that in time, the scientific evidence will reflect God's Word, meaning the creation account will become more and more apparent as time passes on. And of course, these are my views, and I'm not saying you have to believe this, or you're not saved, or whatever. You have the right to disagree with me, and but these are my positions, and I honestly think that this is very strong because Jesus described the New Jerusalem, what it would be like, and said it's exactly the way the Garden of Eden is described. And if somebody says that the Garden of Eden wasn't sinless, it didn't involve death, blah blah blah, then they have a major problem when they try to describe what the New Jerusalem will be like. And another thing is that none of the evolutionary standpoints are supported biblically, none at all, especially when it comes to this eschatological stuff. And so it seems to me that Christian evolutionists are going to have a really hard time defending their viewpoint, certainly biblically, because it seems to be in contradiction. But these are my views, and if anybody has any disagreements with me, I'd love to see some dialogue on that. That'd be cool. Somebody could try to see how evolution and creation could fit together. That would be fun. So I'd like to hear you guys' viewpoint. God bless, guys, and you can check out my notes in the sidebar, of course, like always, and you can see all of my sources and stuff. And I encourage you to look that up if you disagree with me. So God bless, guys.